everyone, to the Next Best Picture podcast, where we are talking with Christine Blundell, Lesa Warner, and Neal Scanlan, the hair and makeup team from Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Please, thank you.
I'm very, very excited to talk to you all because I think I speak for everyone in the movie-going world that we were very excited to see all these characters on our screens again. And, how did you approach working on such iconic characters 30, 40 years after they were first seen?
Shall I start here?
Yeah.
That was one of the fundamental sort of like main things at the start. When we first got this job, it was really, you're really aware that you're dealing with a fan base, myself being one of them, of the original film. And bringing this, I mean, it's the most anticipated sort of like sequel that happened 30 years later. It's like, I mean, take your time, why don't you? But we finally got there. And what's kind of sort of interesting is, as opposed to a sequel being 2 years later, when nothing's really sort of changed, you've suddenly got all of our characters have really grown up. So I mean, Lydia especially, and there was like that, I'm not sure if you'd even noticed this, but there's a definite, when we first started, the first scene that you see Lydia in the ghost house doing her show, it's almost like a mirror image to her as a kid. And that was a deliberate play on the whole thing of just like, okay, let's just get everybody into the comfort zone of our Beetlejuice world again. And then everything sort of softens down. But I mean, that was there's like sort of almost a nod to her sort of selling out, doing the TV show and and all of that, and keeping that really spiky fringe. With the rest of the characters, obviously she softens up after that. The rest of the characters, with Michael Keaton, we made him a bit more moldy and a bit more grungy, like he'd been hanging about for a long, long time, to sort of like waiting for Lydia to come back. With Delia, we sort of, again, when we first met her, we had an army full of wigs in there ready to sort of try on. I mean, it was just kind of trying to bring it 30 years down the line while still giving like a definite generous nod to, the iconic film that it will always be to all of us, I think. I'm going to pass over to somebody else. I'll just carry on talking otherwise.
Well, you bring up something that was actually going to be one of my other questions, which is whose idea was it for Lydia to have that same chunky fringe in the front as she had in the original? Because it's such a specific character thing.
Here's the thing: is I have to say it's something that I said to Tim, one of my first sort of talks to him about Lydia. I was just like, what do we still want to keep that essence of goth girl? But maybe make it something a little bit more modern day, sort of like funky, as in going even short. I mean, listen, Winona can carry it off, whatever you'd put on her. But it was definitely, Tim was keen to not get too involved in the actual looks until we had everybody sitting in the chair. He's incredibly respectful of having the actor involved in the look as well. So in the meantime, I'd kind of sort of made up loads of different variations of fringes, and different bangs, so that we could literally just offer everything up and just see how far we could sort of like push her, or almost keep it as something a little bit kooky, which we definitely sort of wanted to sort of stay in that ballpark. I think if we hadn't have done a nod to that fringe, there'd have been, I think I might have had a bit of a backlash. I don't know. Who knows?
I also wanted to ask you, like, in addition to like these sort of iconic characters that you're all working on, there are also so many like extras and background dead people in those scenes in the afterlife. And I was wondering if there were any of those makeups that we might have missed as audience members, but that you all were like, I really love what we did on this particular background character. Because like all of them can have stories from how they died and what has happened to them once they got to the afterlife.
I think that's really important as well, is to
that you're able to see all the background actors and you know the dead and be able to recognize immediately how they died. It has to be like an instant. But that's what was so fun. I mean, they were, you know, you could recognize immediately, oh, this lady's been eaten by cats. Oh, this lady's, you know, been eaten by fish, or this, you know, you know, you recognize them. Every day was so fun, so fun.
I
But
think
Neil
that's
was part of that.
part of the thing, isn't it? That, you know,
Yeah.
they are all there, and I think it's probably part of the thing of when I don't, you know, if you feel the same, but when I saw the movie for the first time, you know, it was a complete overload. I couldn't, even though we'd worked on it, I couldn't take it all in. So I had to go and see it several other times, and every time I did, I saw more and more of that work that is there. It just passes you by so quickly, and you get a chance to look at things. You know, the guy that died with the darts from the, you know, from the jungle darts, all those sort of things that you see them next time around. So yeah, it's a real joy to watch the film several times and see that the work is all there. It's just yeah, it's so frenetic, it's so quickly paced in many ways that yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting slow with my age, but I need a few more than one viewing to enjoy everybody's work. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there was also a thing with the afterlife. I mean, we had a lot more afterlife than what the original ever had. And I remember at the very start of this, we between us all, we came up with over 100. I think there was, in the end, there was like 200 ideas of how people could have died.
Wow.
But there could be a visual element involved. And I know when we was prepping, we had a post-it board where people, like all of our team or anyone, was invited to kind of come in with a crazy death story, you know, like sort of woman died under the woman died under the dryer, or, you know, sort of like this woman was a busker who was a statue down in Covent Garden and nobody realized they were dead for 2 weeks. Like every day people were coming up with these like really mad sort of stories, and then we'd all sit together and just go, okay, which ones have got legs? And then, you know, Neal would take them to his sort of like brilliant concept person and come up with a visual for it, and then we'd run with it, you know. I mean, the general rule is that if it gave you a bit of a giggle, then you know that then
Yeah.
you know, there's not meant to be anything malicious about this film. You know, it really is, you know, about worst case scenarios for things that can happen.
Yeah, they're silly deaths, aren't they?
Yeah,
They're just silly deaths.
like the dart person, you know, and the
Yeah.
anaconda. It's all of our, you know, you will watch it again and again and again and see different deaths. You know,
Yeah.
we had one with a guy with a golf ball in his forehead, didn't we, Neal? I'm sure
Yeah.
that was something that jumped on us one day where
Yeah.
Tim or somebody said,
Yeah.
and he died with a golf ball in his forehead, and it was like, okay.
I that suggestion board must have been so much fun to just check on
Oh,
every day.
oh, believe me, there's so much went on behind the scenes on this film. I mean, it really is a whole nother film behind the scenes. You know, it's funny because I did see something that was sort of like posted the other day of like a behind the scenes of the making of, and there's so you kind of forget how mad it all was. You know, and you'd find yourself like walking in on a test of, you know, like when you did the Beetlejuice with the tongue come rolling out. Neal, you know, and I remember walking in on that because somebody had said, "Oh, that we're going to need a Beetlejuice wig," and I sort of walked in. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's one of Neal's mad puppets. Right, fine, okay, let's go and sort this out for him." But every day was like you know, an army of, you know, people just coming up with things, you know, to show really.
I think one of the joys of working with Tim on all those ideas was that I think that, you know, what we were able to do in lots of cases was shoot very short video tests. And those tests became really invaluable because they not only sort of showed everybody how we could do the effect, so because it was going to be done practically, whatever makeup effect it was, but it also gave Tim a kind of, you know, a language that we were able to work with him on. And he was really brilliant at sort of taking those video tests and saying, okay, this is how we need to do it. So you're not trying sometimes to do too much. You're trying to do exactly what's required for that moment. And Tim's very good at keeping that moment there. So you can do things that sometimes you probably would be a little timid about doing if you weren't quite sure of the director's intentions. But with Tim, you know what he's going to do, you know where the effect's going to be, and so you can build for that effect. And I think that was also one of the fun things about it. If he said, "I want a man with a golf ball in his head," you knew that he wouldn't throw you kind of under the bus by sort of suddenly deciding he wanted to shoot it in a way that made it impossible for us to do it. So he would work with us on those levels, and I think that made it good for us to do that, and made it exciting for us to do it and fun to do it. Yeah.
I can imagine. I mean, Neal, you're the animatronics guy on this film, and I think this movie features one of the best of those that I've seen in a long time, which is the giant shark bite. Um, man, which I think every time that was on screen, the audience just had a blast with it when I saw this. And so I wanted to ask, like, how many tests did you have to do on something like that before you got it to work the way that you wanted it to work?
So there's like three versions to that. There's the version when you do the drawing, and obviously you're thinking that the main part of this is going to be the actor's body, the actor's leg. You need a physical actor to play the role because it's not always going to be a close-up shot. So at that point, you know that the actor's going to have to wear a blue hood because we're going to have to digitally remove that part. The next part is essentially that's a drawing. So the next part is to try and then to sculpt something in a maquette form so that Tim has a model to look at and use his director's eye in a sense to kind of go, this is great. So we'll have a shoulder part here, and we'll have a knuckle part here, a bit of rib here, a little bit of the windpipe. And then we go into doing some practical effects, which are obviously quite crude to begin with. We just mock something up, we put it on the shoulders of an actor, or we make it as a puppet. And then we just get into the kind of physical motion of that. That helps us understand how we might puppeteer it. And then Tim one of the suggestions was, do you want some blood to come out when he speaks, kind of moment. And Tim said, oh yeah, I love it. So you test that. Then you just literally you go ahead and you refine it and make it, make it more and more, to the point. So yeah, it's so again, you've got an actor and you've got an insert puppet. So in some scenes it's being puppeteered completely, no digital cleanup. In other shots, there's an actor there, and we have to remove the actor. And Angus Bickerton obviously did all of that work for us. Yeah, fun.
It's incredible. And I was
just sort of squeezing away, thinking that we're in time. Sometimes it would just go everywhere, and sometimes it'd be a dribble. But I don't know, just somehow that seemed to work.
I can only imagine what the vibe must have been like on set with all this fun going on.
There's a lot of cleanups, I can tell you. There was always a massive roll of the blue roll somewhere very close.
Well, I mean, when Beetlejuice spills his guts, I mean, again, it's a kind of favourite of mine because, and I'm giving the game away here, but if you look very closely in the shot, you can actually see that Michael is leaning forward on a board. He's actually astride, essentially, a big tube, like a cannon. And in that cannon, it's all of the guts, it's all the fluid, it's all of the horrible, ucky stuff. All those guts are connected to monofilaments on one big wire that was rigged for us by the rigging department. And when we pull that wire, Michael opens up a shirt on his fake body. So all of this stuff comes out and literally filled the set. It was just a complete hazard zone for about 2 hours while we had to clean up. We had to clean up in between each take. So there was an army of people came in and brilliantly helped us all clean up and then stuff them all back in the way you go. So yeah, and you get a lot of excitement in that. It's really interesting is when you get a film crew and you're doing things like that, there is it's a little bit like, I suppose, when there's blood around, there's a little bit of a fever on the set because something's going to happen, that it's the child in us, isn't it? We're all going to get excited by the fact that someone or the camera or all of us are going to get completely covered in goop. But hey, that's the fun of it, and that's filmmaking, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So yeah, it brings that was across the board, I think, in the film. So many of the moments were like that.
Mm-hmm. Were there any problems that came up on set that you had to come up with a quick creative fix for?
I mean,
Can you walk us through what one of them might have
I'm
yeah.
gonna
been?
move this over to Lesa when she had the Danny DeVito foaming mouth thing.
Oh,
She did she pulled out quite an amazing little trick from up her sleeve on that one, if I remember rightly.
yes, it was a Barocca.
Oh, don't give the game away. How we do it.
Well, no, actually, because he had this stuff in his mouth that foamed, so that when Monica kind of sucked his soul, this stuff would project out. But he had it in his mouth moments before, and there was a camera malfunction, so he was there, like busy with with this foaming out, and it went all over Monica.
Oh no.
And we had to
Quick
reset
clean-up time.
quickly, but
And the blue roll was again.
the blue roll was brought out, yeah, and Monica was apologized to.
Oh,
I
but
can
there was
imagine.
lots of other things that we sort of like. It's like when the baby ate Winona's Lydia's ankle. You know, all of a sudden you're kind of sort of ripping her tights and kind of putting baby cuts all up her leg
Yeah.
and things. It's like, I mean, there's a lot of things that kind of, you know, you always had to have a little emergency kit on set with you. And I know with your guys, you know, there's a lot of times when, you know, even with our little piranha face with the dad,
Tim,
you know, there's a lot of stuff. Go on, sorry.
yeah, no, it was almost exhausting because it was like, you know, you go through the process of designing things, through the process of locking things down, and you think you're there, and then you know that the shoot is so many weeks, and you know in truth you we got to the point where how many days could we go, how many hours could we go before Tim came up with another idea, and the phone, and it would got this idea. It'd be great if when Michael turns around, he's got these big bulging eyes. It's like, yeah, okay, great. When do you need it? Oh, we need that for tomorrow morning. And it's like 5 o'clock in the evening, you know, and you think, oh my gosh, we're going to build these. Christina, she's going to have to do all the makeup on it. We have to get it all right. But, you know, we did it. And then you thought, well, we're through it now. And then Tim would come up with
And
another
you throw
idea.
something else, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
It was really silly things, Daniel. You know, like even like when you're doing the dead people, and we had like a mime artist who's sort of in the back of the shop and screams like this. And like, you know, you'd be watching him on set and he does the scream. And I remember watching him and going, oh my God, his tongue's pink. He's too alive. Make his tongue dead. So all of a sudden you're kind of literally going to the nearest like Sainsbury's and as fast as you can and getting food colouring and quickly getting to gargle it. And you know, like there's things that you just don't, you can never cover everything until, and then you're on set and you're just like, oh my God, he's got an alive bit going on. You know, and it's you just are thinking on your feet permanently, and it really is that sort of thing that, you know, it's not just about what you can pull out of your makeup kit.
No.
It's about what you can get from the corner shop really quite quickly to cover up things. It is about what you know, what gags can happen. You know, sort of, you know, Harris, you're dependent on him kind of sort of throwing a light to sort of shadow over something that you just haven't had time to kind of get to. You know. So many, like our frozen Cossacks, you know, they looked incredible. We never saw enough of them. We only got to see them walking Jeremy away. Oh no, they was walking Astrid away, wasn't they? But actually, with the work that went into those Cossacks, you know, even just like freezing up their beards and things, and making, you know, doing all of the crackling all over their skin. There's so much detail there that I think you kind of you sort of miss it a lot. You know, but it's a film you can watch again and again.
Yeah, and also the gallery, the opening with Delia. Every look was a different look for her in the gallery, as all of the different installations. It was a fantastic gallery. I mean, I would love to have visited that gallery, like if you know, as a punter. It was so good, but we didn't quite see enough of it. But every look was different for her.
I can imagine, yeah.
She played a different part for all of it, and that was the day before she arrived. We
wow.
shot. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I know we're coming up on the end of our time together, but before we go, I wanted to just go through all the three of you and ask quickly, what was your favorite character that you worked on for this movie? It could be one of the main ones, it can be someone we just saw in the background, but each of you, what was your favorite character to work on? We'll start with you, Christine.
My favorite character outside of the main cast, because they were all pretty much fun. Because weirdly, I loved with Justin Theroux, and I know that he's not, he's not a dead person or anything like that, but he was so much fun getting his look together. There was a lot of belly laughs with him, sort of being totally up for this, or a little bit of guy liner and everything. But I guess also the cat lady. I mean, I could going on and on. The cat lady, she was fun, because that was another one where we sort of got her ready in the bus, and then you got her on set, and it was like, no, you had to really pump it up, almost like theatrical. So she was fun, and the whole with the rollers in the hair and that. I love all of those kind of gags.
Fun. And Lesa?
Danny, I loved it. Yeah. Doing his look was really fun.
Very cool. And Neal?
I think it has to be Dolores, really, because I think that, for me, Dolores wasn't just a makeup and a prosthetic appliance. It was a whole effect almost in its own right. The whole assembly of her, the whole look from Tim's sketch. It's a very wholesome sort of version of what we do. And it was tremendous, and it was also a great shoot. It was a fun shoot.
Well, that's all the time we have, but it was so much fun chatting with you. Thank you all for speaking with us today, and thanks so much for your work on the film. It's tremendous.
Thank you.
Time goes quickly. Thank you.
Yes.